Welcome back to Visibility Vixen. You're listening to episode 9.
Once you learn what you're made of, and if you learn that lesson young, you know what you bring to the table. You know where your value is. You know what you're really about, and that has to be from everything from romantic relationships, friendships, and the way you charge your clients.
Welcome to the Visibility Vixen podcast, where we create space to grow our brand with intention and clarity, one episode at a time. Join us as we explore the many aspects of entrepreneurship, start loving the journey instead of the destination, and begin building a legacy that lasts. Here's your host, Michelle Lewis.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Ladypreneur Legacy. I am thrilled to be talking to the wonderful Jenny Beres. We just were on the phone together and we realized that we literally live like 5 minutes apart. So Jenny, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. I'm so happy to be here. It's even cooler knowing that we're neighbors and we're about to go have some awesome pastry when we're done.
Oh, that's the wonderful thing about being an online entrepreneur is that you connect with people all over on the internet and stuff, but once in a while you find people that live right down from you and it helps you, feel a little bit more like, hey, I'm not in this all alone. We're in this together.
Exactly. I think it's a myth that it's just, you meet people from all over the world because there's people sometimes right in your own backyard that you never would have had the chance to connect with without the web presence. So it's really interesting how you start with like a larger platform and scale down to local connections. It's really interesting.
It's true. It's kind of backwards, but in this beautiful way. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background on Jenny so you can get to know her a little bit more. Jenny Beres started her business as a burnt-out waitress and playwright with her last $75 to her name. She hoped selling one of those scripts would get her out of slinging eggs and bacon, but apparently plays sell for the same price, minus the free coffee. Fast forward a few years and she's now the proud owner of a 6-figure freelance copywriting business and a freelance business coach who helps other creatives own their talents and build their freelance empires working from home, doing what they love. Jenny specializes in helping women turn their creative passion into their dream profession. Darling, that is such a beautiful bio and something that I know so many people can relate to.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so funny, I run into so many people online that, freelancers, we're such a different breed. We have a different mentality, the way that we go about finding clients, the way that we operate in the world, the way that we're motivated even is so different than other online businesses, so different than the coaching and the consulting space, so different than the e-commerce space. And so I'm finding, it's funny you say that, I'm finding that a lot of people are connecting with kind of a similar background where it's like, I don't want to set up, a Facebook group or a web course or passive income. I just want to do what I love and have the freedom to travel and use my talent in a way that sets me up for a happy life. And so I really appreciate you saying that because I'm finding that there are freelancers who don't even know they're freelancers.
I think you're totally spot on. And I want to dive into really quick because it's really rare for me to talk to a fellow script writer. I'd love to know what kind of scripts you are working on. Was it TV, film, or plays?
Oh, that's a great question. So I've done a little bit of everything. So I started my career as a playwright. So at the time I was working on plays. I've been really, really lucky to say that I've been produced up and down the East Coast. I've won a lot of playwriting awards. I write comedy. And then I moved out to Los Angeles because I was actually working on a feature that my writing partner and I at the time had optioned to James Gandolfini's company. And so it was an action-adventure movie script. And then I kind of started moving into writing television pilots. And so I'm, as far as the creative side, not the copywriting side, though that's also, creative in its own right, I'm focused on, I'm writing one comedy pilot right now, and I'm also gearing up to write my first play in several years. I'm really excited to do that here in LA.
I'm excited about that too. I just think it's so funny that we came into each other's lives because that's what I used to do as well. My dad's actually a director and he is just
cool.
he's just moving into doing this feature, which is going to be so much fun. But we actually worked on the pilot of Studio City together. So it's just funny. Like synchronicity is just all over the place today. So excited to talk to you.
It really is. Oh, this is so exciting! I love talking to another writer and director and screen the screen buff.
Exactly. It's not like as common as women to have that passion. So I feel like when you find that other woman that loves that, it's just destiny.
It really is, because it really is for those people who don't know, and you only hear about it usually around Oscar time, and people think that, people are just complaining for drama and to make headlines. It really is a male-dominated field. You do struggle with having women directors and writers, get not just equal pay, but equal chances. I mean, very rarely men dominate this space, and so it's really important. It's really important that we stick together and we keep pushing each other. We rise together. We keep pushing each other's talents forward, because that's the way that we change the paradigm here.
Absolutely. My dad really loves when he gets to go onto shows like Pretty Little Liars and be the supervising director, because he'll work with the women that are coming through the program, and he'll teach them, A to Z, how to really be great directors so that they can bust through that paradigm. And so he's so gifted at that. You'll have to meet him someday.
That's so cool. And it's much needed. It is much needed. I also think, you take an industry like Hollywood that promotes competition instead of, coming from a place where there's room for everybody and that everybody has their own brilliance and their own genius. It's a place where it can be very, dog eat dog, a lot of jealousy, a lot of competition. And so, especially with women, we've come, as we come and we rise from a background of oppression, it's so easy for people not to want to support who they see as their competitor. And that just comes from years and years of us feeling like there isn't enough for us. If there's one of us that makes it through, that's great. And so it's so important that kind of work keeps being done to remind people that there is room for everybody. And if you help your fellow women, you help fellow writers and directors and freelancers, you help them rise, and that only helps you, and that makes a big social impact.
That's the perfect segue into talking about the competition that can happen amongst female entrepreneurs, especially online, especially freelancing and coaching. So I know that you really love to talk about the power of freelancing and busting those myths that you can't make money that way or you can't stand out. So do you want to give us kind of an intro into that change of mentality?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I'm I've only been in the coaching space for about a year and a half. And the reason that I got into the coaching space was because I really saw a gap. There was a gap of coaches who specialized completely in freelance business. And we are different. Our needs are different. The way that we approach clients are different. In fact, some advice that coaches will give new, just quote, online businesses, and it might work for some structures, actually can be detrimental to a brand new freelancer. So I started noticing that people, and freelancing, then, you have to have a strategy. You have to know what you're doing, and you also have to have, it always goes back to mindset work, right? Like, you have to have your mind right about what's possible. And, because I've been doing this, I've been doing this 10 years. So when I started, I didn't have the luxury of Facebook groups, for example. I didn't have, Facebook at all. I didn't have the things that were propping up, but also what I think are hindering a lot of freelancers and confusing them about what their role really is. There is a ton of money to be made in freelancing. The problem is people count it out, or they look at it so small before they even really evaluate what their options are. So I'll tell my new clients who come to me and they say, I don't know if this is going to work. And I say, look around you. Someone designed that. Somebody wrote that. Somebody social media'd that. someone got that out into the media. Someone was a PR expert. And so what I'm finding is that you have a lot of people that are just really limited looking at what they're seeing available in the Facebook groups, and also the content notes. You know, they'll do a quick Google search. How do you become a freelance writer? How do you become a freelance graphic designer? And they get taken to content notes, which pay you, $5 and a stick of gum for a 500-word blog. And so you start off with people who already feel discouraged, who already don't see a path forward, when in actuality is you have to broaden your thinking and realize now, especially more than ever, companies need freelancers. I think it was Entrepreneur, actually, magazine that just put out an article that said there are more six-figure freelancers in the world now than there's ever been. And that's because it runs parallel with people with people losing their traditional jobs. The freelance market is booming.
I think that's so powerful because a lot of people, like, I agree with you about the Facebook groups, that can be so overwhelming. And you see people that have kind of started to get the system down and they're putting in their tips and tricks and they're promoting themselves and stuff. And it can make you feel like, well, I wanted to do that, but why should I even try? You know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think we're getting into this space where we are in the middle of a coaching and consulting boom. I am part of that. I love coaching. I love helping people, make a crazy amount of money freelancing. I love that. But that model doesn't fit for everybody. And so you have people that get really frustrated because they're on social media all day and they're like, I'm not connecting with any clients. Well, of course you're not. You have to go where your client is. And so I'm really into kind of really busting these myths about freelancers. Companies pay and you can research, and I tell my clients this, you research companies, you go for companies that you're excited about, that you feel like you can add something to. You pitch to ones that I'm a big advocate of pitching. I've never met a six-figure freelancer that does not pitch, that does not actively get out there and market themselves through pitching. The money is there. You just have to turn around and look at all of the options. And it's not a one-pronged strategy approach. You have to try, there's about 6 prongs to that, to that table that you're juggling constantly. To make sure that you have business coming in. So it's just a very, very different arena, and one that a lot of people have struggled in for a long time, but they don't have to. There is a strategy. There are fantastic ways to break through, and there's so much money. The stuff you see online is just not an accurate representation, and it's also because you end up with people who have like an employee mentality. It's easier to Google and go to a site that pays you less and finds the client for you and call yourself a business owner than to actually get out and market yourself like an entrepreneur and not work as an employee.
Do you think that there's any confusion around, I am not a freelancer, so this is new to me, but there might be ladypreneurs listening who are like, well, I want to do online coaching or I want to build courses, but I also really like the idea of freelance work. Can you maybe give a little bit of advice on, hey, if you want to be a freelancer, this part has to be your passion and this is how you can kind of make it work? I don't know if that's clear. I'm just not familiar with it. So I'm wondering if people are feeling lost, where they could start finding their direction.
Sure. I think that's a really great question. I think there is a lot of confusion right now because I think that you have a lot of programs that are designed, they're for online businesses, but right now they're for coaches. And most of the things that work for coaches and work for consultants don't necessarily work for freelancers. So you have to start with one thing. You have to focus on one thing, and then you can grow that one thing. So I have a client who is working on becoming a graphic designer, and he also wants to start passive income. And it's like there's a time and a place to scale up. But one thing, you have to build up one source of income at a time so that you have something to rely on, so you have something to scale from. So the great news is if you're in a 9-to-5 job right now, and you hate your job, it is a lot faster and a lot easier for you to start freelancing, build up that source of income, and then move on to whatever it is, if it's mindset coaching or it's, health coaching or whatever it is that you want to do, moving to that model next once you have the freelancing stuff in place, because it's a shorter, if you go about pitching yourself and you have a good portfolio and you work on building those things, you can just make money pretty fast, and then you can work on scaling that knowledge. But it's very hard and very discouraging to have 4 different things that you want to do, try to launch them all at once. You don't have a platform. Nothing is helping you build the other thing, and then you burn out thinking that, online entrepreneurship is a bust. So did that answer your question? Did that make that a little clearer?
It totally does, because I did what you were saying not to do. So I was standing in on this TV show, and I was like, okay, this show's coming to an end and I'm going to stop. And I have the blessing of a husband who works in TV, and that's wonderful. And I know that that's a blessing, but I wanted to start my online business, my website, my coaching, my e-courses without really knowing anything or having any direction. So I spent so much time online looking stuff up, like you said, getting discouraged. And because I didn't have any secure foundation of income, it was very stressful for me to start, charging to my credit card, my e-course accounts and my email responders and, the social media management and stuff. And so I really wish that I would have had the clarity of mind back then to go, okay, this is how, while I'm working my job, I can start building this to make that transition easier, because then you have a bigger foundation of knowledge so you don't get as easily discouraged.
That's such a good point, and that's so true. I tell my clients this. It is not fair for you because things that need time to grow, they need time to grow, whether you launch that business totally debt-free or, $10,000 in debt or with $20 to your name. Regardless of what baggage you bring to the table when you start a new business, you have to leave it at the door. You cannot make your baggage your business's responsibility and then get upset when the business is just doing what it's going to do, which is taking time to grow. It's equivalent of, maybe waiting till you're 42 to have a baby if that's what you want to do, and thinking, wow, if I deliver this baby at 43, I'm going to have some health problems. So, sorry, kid, I know you need 9 months to bake, but I'm going to rip you out at 3 months because that's easier for me. And then be upset that the baby is damaged or dead or injured and you can't recover. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with a business. And so I really highlight to my clients and my colleagues that if this is what you have to check that baggage at the door, check that those responsibilities at the door, and still allow your business the time to grow, because you need a solid foundation. I would not have been able to launch into coaching in a fairly stress-free manner. Obviously, you have the general stresses of starting a new business and figuring out the ropes, if I didn't have the financial support. And so, and there are a lot of freelancers, and this is not for everyone. A lot of freelancers just want to do their thing. They just want to write. They just want to be graphic designers. And that's wonderful. But a lot of people don't care if they run a Facebook group or have a webinar or have a passive course. And so you have to just decide what is it that you want to do. If freelancing is your end game, there's a way to scale that up where you are making, high 6 figures and outsourcing. And if that's not your thing and you want to coach and you want to do more consulting, how do you get your baseline numbers made? How do you do that quickly and effectively so that can support you in launching the next portion of your business without you, looking at your watch the whole time when that business needs time to grow?
Absolutely. Well, and it can change it's so funny that you said that baby example, because I was doing health coaching for 9 months of my business. And then at 9 months, I realized, well, something isn't right here. And my friend said to me, why aren't you teaching video? Like, you should be a visibility expert. And that's when my business totally changed. So you need to give it that time to grow and totally change, because sometimes what you think that you're gifted at isn't really your gift. It's something that you don't even necessarily see as a gift.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That's so true. And it's really interesting that you started with, you were doing some of the health coaching. A lot of what the experts say, like if you want to be a multimillionaire, you want to be a billionaire, it's got to be, you have to think about multiple streams of income, for sure. So whether you just want to work with your creative talents and you end up outsourcing and building an agency model, that's one way. Or you could get into consulting and coaching on top of that. But if you don't have a solid foundation of one of those things, the people who are the most miserable and the most impatient and do things to sabotage their business, they usually do it out of financial desperation. There's something about the money. Something about money makes people crazy.
Yes.
And it makes people make some really whacked out decisions when it comes to their business. And they'll be really, they'll spend too much money where it doesn't matter. They will cheap out where they need to actually invest. It turns everybody around. And so to function for your business, your new growing business to function, if you can freelance and you have that writing skill, that video editing skill, whatever it is, I highly recommend that as a way to get yourself to a solid income that's on your terms, that you could still, you can write. I wrote for clients everywhere in the world. You could still do that and ease into the next, phase or segment of your business.
Yes, I totally agree with that and think that that's so wise, especially for people that are feeling like they're struggling a little bit, treading water, trying to figure out their direction. And speaking of that, I always think that it's inspiring to hear from people like you how you got to your direction. So let's talk about your big why. And that, for at least the students that I teach, is the huge reason that they're moving forward in their biz, like how they actually want to change the world. So can you share with us what your big why is?
Yes. So my why has changed a lot throughout the years. But I would say that my most current why, because I don't think we ever stop becoming who we're supposed to become. So my why started off all about freedom. I have terrible performance anxiety when it comes to school. I'm really great with people. I love them, but I had a really rough time with academia. And so school was not really an option for me. I dropped out of college because it just, I used to cut school in high school and people would think that I was just being a badass about it. I couldn't sit there on edge for 8 hours a day without cracking. I would cut school, I'd go to Wendy's, and I could breathe. I know it's like, went to Wendy's. That was my big escape. But so back then, when I started freelancing, I never wanted a real job. I couldn't take it. I had one real job for a month. I walked out at lunchtime, said I was going to lunch, left my cubicle filled with things, and never came back. I couldn't handle it. So I knew for me, freedom and the freedom to do things the way I work without the constant pressure of people watching me, without people, criticizing, without people scrutinizing, was really important. And plus, I've always been a traveler. I've always done things the way I wanted to do. So back then, freedom was my number one thing. Freedom is still really important to me. But as I've grown, it has shifted to, it's kind of like when you run a race and you cross the finish line and you look around and your friends maybe aren't there, or that your tribe isn't there, and you turn around and you see them, struggling, or they're tripping over tree branches, or they slipped into a puddle. It became more about that. I started talking to people who wanted to freelance desperately, who wanted to use their talents. I live in Los Angeles. There are so many brilliant actors and writers and designers here that are waiting for their big break. And they're living a life of financial misery, hoping that someone is going to validate their talent, swoop in, and save them.
That is so true.
I didn't let that happen to me, and I started to get really motivated to help my tribe, to help my creatives, to show them you have this talent, you can make money now. And it takes the pressure off your creative work too, when you're not worried about, money. So that is my why. My why is to make sure that freelancers don't get abused, that creatives don't get abused, that they finally start getting paid what they're worth. Because if we all took a stand and said, no, we're not giving away our creative talents for free, you would see marketing, you would see social, you would see creative agencies just come to a grinding halt, because the brand story runs on our backs, and I want people to start seeing how that can change their lives now.
I love that. What life lesson has been more valuable than gold to you?
I love this question. I almost died from adult chickenpox when I was 18. And that was really rough because I'm an 18-year-old girl. I never had bad skin. I was fairly confident in the way that I looked. And then I had this horrible disease that really screwed up what I looked like, and I had to wait. I ended up having 2 reconstructive surgeries, laser reconstructive surgeries on my face because the scarring was so bad. And I had to wait a year from the time that I had chickenpox to the time of my first surgery. I had to wait a year for my body to heal because I had just been so sick. And my mom dragged me out of the house after I got home from the hospital. It was a few weeks later. I recovered enough to go out, and she wanted to go to Applebee's. And I remember the terror of going out of the house, and all of a sudden, things that I thought I knew about myself came crashing down. It just, everything became, I had to dig so deep into the core of who I am to recover from that. And I remember sitting at Applebee's, and the server came up to us, and he asked, the big philosophical question, what do you want to drink? And I freaked out. And I said, do you want to know why my face looks like this? My face looks like this because I almost died, and I was in the hospital, and I know it looks gross. And it was the first time that something that I thought I knew about myself was ripped away, and I had to dig below the surface to heal. And I think that's really made an impact in, I think it makes an impact in not just self-confidence, like once you heal from something like that, but knowing just how deep our strength is, and what we're made of that has nothing to do with what we look on the outside.
That is so true. It makes me a little bit emotional because I relate to you so much because I had chronic cystic acne that started when I went to college, where they would actually have to inject my face with cortisone to try to get the swelling down because it would make my eye swell up. Oh, it was just awful and definitely created swelling, which fortunately I was able to heal naturally later. But it's true, nothing takes away your worth and your confidence, especially, before you've hit your 20s, like that kind of disfiguring thing. So I'm so sorry you went through that, but I'm so grateful in a way that I did because it really made me accept who I was at the lowest of the low. And I know it did the same for you. And that's such a powerful lesson.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry you went through that as well. It's nice to talk to somebody that relates, because especially being a woman, because we are judged the way we look. Should we be? No. But is it a reality? Absolutely. And being a young girl like that, we're both, we haven't even hit 20 yet, and we're having to feel self-conscious about the way we look, and it plays an interesting story. You start to create things that aren't even there. I don't know if you experienced this, but I would just imagine, like I did with the Applebee's server, he must be thinking that I look deformed. He must be wondering what happened to me. And you start ascribing stories to other people that they may not even be telling themselves. So it's a really, it can really make a person neurotic. But I'm grateful, like you said, that we have those experiences, because once you learn what you're made of, and if you learn that lesson young, first of all, I think the aging process will just be that much easier, because you're not so hung up on your looks, but also you know what you bring to the table, you know where your value is, you know what you're really about, and that has to be from everything from romantic relationships, friendships, and the way you charge your clients. It's really an important lesson to learn. So even though it sounds like it was painful.
Well, it sounds like yours was too. Oh my goodness. But I totally hear you. And I think that it also makes you a better businesswoman and a better teacher, because you can relate to women no matter where they're at. And especially with visibility, it doesn't matter if someone hasn't necessarily gone through a physical disfiguring process. Everyone has their burdens. Everyone struggles with their worth. Everyone struggles with being enough. And so to have someone who's been through it that can say, no, listen to my voice. Don't listen to your voice until you can actually find your worth, is such a powerful tool.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So
that's such a good point.
Let's lift the atmosphere a little bit, and let's talk about your favorite daily habit.
Favorite daily habit. So right now, my favorite daily habit is that, so my best friend is also my business partner, and she and I recently moved, and so now I only live 3 blocks away from her. So before we start working, before we start planning, we take my dogs for a walk every morning, and we walk 3 miles every morning, and we stop and get tea and coffee, and we play with the dogs, and we just start the day outside in the sunshine, together, just kind of talking about everything and just getting moving and just feeling good about the day. And, you know, it sounds so simple. Like, I don't think 2 years ago I would have told you that my favorite daily habit was walking. And I started to notice just how those simple actions made me feel. And then I started realizing that the people I admired that were, 98 years old, 102 years old, whatever, the thing that they had in common was, first of all, they learned how to relax about stuff, which I think is really important. But they all walked. They all walked a couple miles a day from the time they were like maybe, 30 or 40 or even 50, and even the ones I know in cold areas, they go all walking. And it just seems to be like the way to longevity. So that's, it sounds very simple, but that's something that I do on the daily that's really helped just keep, my mood balanced and help me feel really good about the day to come without just rolling straight into whatever it is I have to do for the business.
That is so awesome. I totally agree with that. You will find me regularly at Coffee Bean in the morning, doing my studies and reading my books and taking out my pug. So I adore that you do that every day.
Awesome. Well, this is so much fun.
I know, it's so much fun. Okay, so Jenny, I would love to know, what is the number one piece of encouragement that you'd like to give a ladypreneur right now who's feeling invisible?
Wow. That's a really
one.
good question, because that's really powerful, because I feel that might be the number one complaint that I hear from people, is that they feel powerless, they feel invisible. I don't know if you get this too in your space, but when you talk to clients, that they say they almost have a defeatist attitude already about doing things because maybe they feel like the market is too crammed or there's not space for them. When it comes to feeling invisible, the one thing that I do, that I've always done, and that I tell people to do, is just, and I'm sure people say this, be yourself. When you're writing your content, write the way you speak. Tell me your personal stories. The questions actually that you've asked me on this interview are great actual branding questions that people can ask themselves while they're telling their story. You have to know that you're not invisible because you're not duplicatable. And there are people that are going to be attracted to your story because they have a similar background. And you never know exactly who's watching. You never exactly know why people, jive with you or jive with your message. And you want to attract people that are part of your tribe. So I think invisibility is something that we create. It's a fear-based thing that we create, because if we were just true to ourselves and that came through in our messaging and we didn't try so hard, and we've all been part of the groups, right? Where like you go in the group and it's like everybody has the same kind of post. Everybody's offering almost what seems like the same thing. And that is fear. That is wanting to, that's a little bit of perfectionism, which is also fear, of wanting to be seen, but also wanting to do it the right way. So I think you have to just say what's on your mind, be yourself, and make sure that that's coming into your messaging. I like to tell people, I like to break the ice telling people, even in my marketing messaging, some of the more embarrassing things that have that have happened to me, because everybody loves a good, embarrassing story that you can laugh at. And I think that's one way to break that invisibility ice.
Absolutely. It's so true. And, usually those of us that are a little bit more visible, it's because we've had such crazy, embarrassing stories.
Yes, or your crazy, embarrassing story is what makes you visible. And in that case, what is it? No press is bad press, or there's no such thing as bad press, whatever that is.
Oh my goodness. We have so many stories to tell when we finally meet for coffee. Okay. So,
yes.
So where can we find you, my dear?
Awesome. Well, right now, I have been spending my days hanging out in my new Facebook group, believe it or not, that's geared towards freelancers. So it's all the stuff that people scroll for in a lot of other groups they're not getting, which is super exciting. So I'm in there doing videos and answering questions every day. It's the Six-Figure Freelancer, and that's a Facebook group. Or you can come hang out on my website. It's jennyberes.com, but definitely with the Facebook group, there's definitely more, one-on-one interaction going on.
Great. Well, that's a place where people who are just kind of getting started with freelancing or maybe want more support can come to feel a little bit less isolated and a little more motivated. So I think that's wonderful. And I know you have a wonderful gift for us today. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about it?
Yes. So one of the things that I heard a lot from people when they were, when they're starting out is they get caught up, looking at these jobs, these freelance jobs, and people are like, oh, I'll give you $60 for this, I'll give you $100 for this. That's a no-no. So I put together a guide called Score a 1K Client, and that will help you get a client that's worth at least $1,000 right out of the gate. You can stop struggling and start earning and quit your job. And if you want to write coffee in Bali, well, then that's what you will do.
Wonderful. So where can we get that freebie?
Bit.ly and Score a 1K Client.
Perfect. So that's bit.ly/score a 1K client. And that's a great resource. So go there now, get that downloaded, and hang out with Jenny in her Facebook group. Darling, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today. I think you've really lifted a lot of women's spirits, and that is always such a pleasure for me to witness.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. This was so much fun, and it's always great to connect, with a like-minded ladypreneur, like-minded spirit. And I will be waiting for our coffee and pastry days.
Me too. It's going to be amazing. So everyone, we will see you next week, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for listening in today to the Visibility Vixen podcast. Subscribe now and share with a fellow Vixen who wants to start building their visibility. For more fire in your life and brand, visit visibilityvixen.com.